Hey there, we missed you, but thanks for letting us have a bit of a break last week. We have a bumper edition for you this week with loads of big news you do need to know. From a verdict in the sordid Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard trial to a bombshell in the local Senzo Meyiwa case. Plus, what you need to know about monkeypox, petrol price increases, and the great news about the state capture crooks getting arrested. So, let's dive into your weekly update of empowering and easy to understand news brought to you by myself, Verashni Pillay, and the Explained Akosa team. First up in our take, no one wins in Amber Heard versus Johnny Depp case. The U.S. defamation lawsuit between actor Johnny Depp and his ex-wife, Aquaman actress Amber Heard, has been nothing short of sordid, with mutual gory accounts of domestic abuse, and now there's a verdict. The 6-week trial ended yesterday with a jury of 5 men and 2 women, finding both had defamed each other but effectively weighing more strongly with Depp. He celebrated the win while Heard expressed her intense disappointment and heartbreak. The entire case rested over just one line, or rather half a line, in a 2-year-old op-ed by Heard, actually 4-year-old op-ed, published in the Washington Post in December of 2018. In that line, she said, 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and I felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out. Depp then sued for defamation for implying he was a domestic abuser, even though he was not named, and he sought $50 million in damage. Heard then countersued, asking for $100 million. It's worth noting that Depp lost a libel case against the Sun tabloid in the UK in 2020 for calling him a wife beater, far harsher words, and in a country where freedom of expression isn't as protected as in the US. One media lawyer noted the jury system probably played a role in Depp's victory. It essentially became being tried in the court of public opinion, and Amber Heard comprehensively lost that battle. The case dominated social media, with TikTok supercuts of the trial mocking Heard. It also exposed a deeply troubling relationship with horrific episodes involving feces, chopped off fingertips, and words written in blood. It's important to note that Heard may well have been abusive to Depp and previous partners, and that Depp also shares a history of violent incidents he usually settles out of court for. It's difficult to know the truth in the he said, she said account of the events. What we do know is that it was deeply unsettling to watch the vitriolic cyber attacks on Heard by Depp supporters. As one commentator wrote, while the throngs of Depp's fans may believe that they've picked the right side in this trial, they are also enabling damaging stereotypes about survivors. The public humiliation of Heard will only make victims more afraid to come forward. No matter who wins this lawsuit, it feels as if we have all already lost. Moving on to the big story, the NPA's heartening state capture arrests. Accountability. We talk about it all the time here at Explained Akosa. It was the subject of one of our first videos where we broke down why no one was in jail yet for state capture. The age of lawlessness under Jacob Zuma may have been over, but we pointed out that the effects of his regime were still being felt. The National Prosecuting Authority, the NPA, was responsible for convincing a judge that someone should go to jail, but it was hollowed out of the skill to do it by the same corruption infecting the rest of the state. Give them time, we told you. You don't want the judge to throw out a case for lack of evidence. But as we've repeatedly noted, even our patience wore thin. People started calling the NPA the National Postponement Authority. So, the last 2 weeks have been healing to watch. The NPA has finally made good on its promise with a series of enrolled court cases, high-profile arrests, and court appearances. The NPA and the Hawks arrested 15 people in a single week. The blitz of arrests started on Tuesday last week, Fin24 reported. But by Friday, it culminated in the biggest state capture arrest so far. Former Transnet CEO Siyabonga Gama and former Trillion Capital's partner CEO Eric Wood. These middlemen linked to the Gupta family made a whopping 93 million rand for helping to facilitate a loan to finance over 1,000 locomotives. But it looks like the firm did exactly nothing to help secure that deal, the state capture inquiry heard. Wednesday also saw the Gupta stalwart Ronika Rajavan and 2 other associates of the family in the dock on charges including fraud and money laundering in relation to the rehabilitation funds of the Optimum and Koenfontein coal mines. More bigwig arrests are expected. Names like Anuj Singh are being thrown around. It's what we needed to see as South Africans after a decade of state capture and then 3 years of just constantly hearing about the details of it at the State Capture Commission. It's been a lot of talk and we were really ready for some action. But beware, there's still a long road ahead. As we said last week, the wheels of justice turn achingly slowly. Expect a long court process ahead, but we hope the criminals responsible for our country losing almost 250 billion rand by some estimates are quaking in their boots. Onto your briefs, unemployment drops. South Africa has the dubious honor of having one of the highest unemployment rates in the world. But there's been a slight move in the right direction this week. The quarterly labor force survey, or QLFS, was released on Tuesday and it showed that unemployment fell by 34.5% in the first quarter of this year. That's down from 35.3%. In layman's terms, this means that the number of jobs created rose by 370,000. The industries that grew were community and social services, manufacturing, and trade. Meanwhile, private households, finance, construction, and agriculture experienced the most job losses. It's worth noting that experts are concerned that these numbers might not be entirely accurate. That's because Stats SA stopped doing face-to-face interviews for the survey in 2020 because of the pandemic. Instead, interviews were done telephonically and reached fewer people. But the good news is that the latest survey was done with face-to-face interviews. Stats SA says that this has helped improve the response rate. Back to the unemployment figures. While this recent drop is, well, a drop in the ocean, it is encouraging to see a move, however minuscule, in the unemployment numbers. We've previously explained what South Africa needs to do to change our unemployment problem. Check out our site for more. Moving on to some international news, time's up for U.S. gun control. Last week, Tuesday, 18-year-old Salvador Ramos walked into Robb Elementary School in Texas and shot and killed 19 children and 2 teachers. It happened when the rap was on a break, but it's still worth unpacking. It was the third deadliest school shooting in the land of the free and the deadliest in Texas ever. Although there are concerns about the police's delayed response to the shooting, gun control is the real issue here. As the BBC put it, we all know that the right to bear arms is protected by the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. What is less clear to those on the outside is why a document written nearly 250 years ago in response to a revolutionary war at the time still has such resonance in 2022. There are a couple of answers to that question. First up, for many U.S. citizens, the right to bear arms is equivalent to the right of freedom of speech. In most other democratic countries, including ours, one has to pass really stringent tests to acquire a personal weapon. Secondly, the country's complex legislation model and partisan politics, meaning extreme division between the two dominant parties on issues like this. That's the conservative Republicans and usually more liberal Democrats. Former Democrat President Barack Obama was blocked by Republicans from passing a gun control bill following the 2012 Sandy Hook school shootings. President Joe Biden, a Democrat, is hoping to bring more Republicans and conservative Democrats who are also blocking these issues to the table to change that. Then there's the country's pro-gun lobby, typified by the National Rifle Association. They're very powerful. It went ahead with its Texas conference days after the shooting, pushing the narrative that putting more guns in the hands of the so-called good guys is the answer to the problem of mass shootings. Some gun lobby groups are already teaching teachers how to carry and use concealed weapons. Yet evidence shows that stricter gun laws saves lives. As the LA Times notes, in 2005, California had almost the same rate of deaths from guns as Florida and Texas. Since then, California repeatedly has tightened its gun laws, while Florida and Texas have relaxed theirs. The result? California's rate of gun deaths declined by 10% since then. Meanwhile, Texas and Florida's climbed by 28% and 37% respectively. California's moved in the right direction, and the other 2 states have moved in the opposite. So until the U.S. overcomes its divisions and follows California's lead, mass shootings will unfortunately remain an American constant. Onto some South African murder, unfortunately. Did Kelly kill Senzo? The Senzo Meyiwa trial has kept South Africans enthralled for years, and this did not change this week when the trial against the 5 men accused of killing the football star continued yesterday morning. That's because the defense dropped a bombshell by claiming that they had a witness who could prove that musician Kelly Khumalo shot Meyiwa. There's been a lot of speculation about who the witness might be. Some have suggested it was Khumalo's estranged sister, Zandile Khumalo Gomede, after she posted the cryptic lyrics to her new song on Instagram. Now, some background. On the evening of 26 October 2014, Meyiwa was shot and killed at Khumalo's mother's house in Vosloorus in what has been described as a robbery gone wrong. We've unpacked the ins and outs of the case before, but suffice to say, as the trial date finally approached, so did the twist in the tale. Lots of things have gone down. Last year, Sifiso Meyiwa, the brother of the late soccer star, claimed police told him that the 5 accused men were not his brother's killers. Then, the advocate representing 4 of the accused, Dan Teffo, was arrested in court on April 28, 2022, last month. Teffo was arrested for a failed court appearance in Hillbrow for assault. Meanwhile, a key state witness, Brigadier Philani Ndlovu, has died. Then there's the drama with the documentary film crew being allowed to film during proceedings. And in some of the most bizarre claims, social media users argue that Kamala's song, loosely translated to I Made a Sacrifice with Him, is proof that she's guilty of the murder. It remains to be seen how the trial plays itself out, but ultimately we all want justice for the Meyiwa family. Some more international news. Pacific Island faces a Mandela-like dilemma with China. Last week, US President Joe Biden made headlines when he said that he'd be willing to use force to defend Taiwan in response to a potential invasion from China. China's new military moves in the region have caused concern because it has always been clear about its goal to force Taiwan back under its control. The background, China's bullish stance towards trade and security pacts over recent decades shows that it is hell-bent on expanding its influence and challenging the US's global hegemony as the world's sole superpower. Now China is aggressively courting 10 small Pacific nations, including Fiji and Papua New Guinea, to endorse a sweeping agreement covering everything from security to fisheries. One leader warns that it is a game-changing bid by Beijing to wrest control of the region, according to CNBC. Now, on the surface, China's proposed pact may seem reasonable, particularly as these Pacific Island nations attempt to find ways to economically recover from the pandemic and deal with the existential threat of rising ocean levels. But the real issue is that China will have even greater military advantage over Taiwan should the deal go through. So the talks have stalled for now between China and the Pacific Islands, but the islands are on the back foot when it comes to negotiations with China. They need help for their struggling economies, and China is giving it to them. But why is Taiwan the issue? Well, that's because it's been one of global diplomacy's biggest stumbling blocks for decades. China refuses to recognize the democratic country as independent and effectively bullies the rest of the world into doing the same. Our own Nelson Mandela experienced a dilemma facing these Pacific Islands today when he tried to provide dual recognition to Taipei in Taiwan and Beijing in China at the beginning of his presidency. It didn't work. The political icon retained a sense of loyalty towards Taiwan, which had helped fund the ANC's election efforts in 1993 to quite a large degree, and was South Africa's sixth largest trading partner at the time. However, as China's political and economic clout grew, Mandela was eventually left with no choice and gave in to China's pressure. If the Pacific Islands fold too, an attack on Taiwan is the most likely outcome. Like the Russia-Ukraine war, that will have massive implications for the world as a whole. Moving on to some good news, South Africans continue to feel the pinch of rising prices. The government has stepped in to help by extending the R1.50 reprieve on the general fuel levy. But this is still a temporary measure to lessen the economic impact of a general 2.43 petrol price increase. Some background. The price of 93 grade petrol rose from 16 Rand 91 cents a litre last year, June, to a whopping 23 Rand 94 cents this year. That's an increase of over 40% in 1 year. The record hikes are a consequence of an increase in the average price of Brent crude oil, which is sadly due to reasons largely out of our control. There's the sanctions imposed on Russia after it invaded Ukraine. There's increases in demand for petrol during the summer months in the northern hemisphere. There's an increase in crude oil supply generally, and there's various supply shocks that were caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The problem with fuel price increases is that even if you decide to cycle and walk everywhere, is that it affects everything from the cost of food and clothes to transport. In an attempt to soften the blow, government has provided this temporary relief through a R1.50 reduction on the general fuel levy in April. This has now been extended until the 6th of July, after which it will be cut to 0.75 cents until the 2nd of August, when it will be withdrawn entirely. The bottom line is that extending the relief measures will cost the government 4.5 billion rand in revenue. Although the relief has initially been funded through the sale of crude oil reserves from the Strategic Fuel Fund, the extension is still set to have an impact on South Africa's national wallet. So, the government is basically buying itself time by providing relief, but it's effectively an increase in government spending and will only provide relief until August, by which time South Africans will be spending well over 25 rand a litre. The search for a sustainable solution to the problem continues. Finally, a rare virus is nothing to monkey around about. Panicking about a new pandemic that may put you in lockdown again? Don't. The monkeypox virus everyone is talking about is not like COVID-19. It's far less contagious, scientists now know much more about it, and its similarities with smallpox means that vaccines are already available. The current strain in circulation is also less severe than others. The World Health Organization does not believe it will lead to a pandemic. The virus, normally found in Central and West Africa, has appeared across Europe and the US in recent weeks, even in people who have never traveled to Africa. This has caused alarm and has led experts to believe that it might have been circulating in the United Kingdom for years. Some history. The name monkeypox originates from the initial discovery of the virus in monkeys in a Danish laboratory in 1958. The first human case was identified in a child in the Democratic Republic of the Congo in 1970. The disease is transmitted from one person to another by close contact with lesions, body fluids, respiratory droplets, and contaminated materials such as bedding. Its incubation period is usually from 6 to 13 days, but can range from 5 to 21 days. Now, monkeypox usually goes away after a week or two, but it may be severe in some individuals, such as children, pregnant women, or persons with immunosuppression due to other health conditions. But South Africans should not worry too much. The National Institute of Communicable Diseases said in a statement last week that there were no recorded or suspected cases of monkeypox in the country. The NICD has also said that it has capacity to test for monkeypox. That's good news for all of us. We cannot take another hellish 2 years. And finally, I know I said the previous story was the last one, but this is really the last one. Machidiso, a crowdfunding funeral app. Funerals are stressful. Between the grief, making the arrangements, and having to cover burial costs, it can be too much to handle. And a proper send-off is expensive. A report by Sanlam noted that funerals can cost anything from 6,000 Rand for low-income groups to 50,000 Rand for middle-class income people and beyond. That's a lot of money. When KZN was devastated by floods, many people wanted to help but didn't know where to start. The floods claimed 459 lives, and some families still need help with funeral costs. A new feature on the funeral organization website and app Sendoff could offer willing donors a way to connect directly with people who have lost a loved one. Sendoff is a South African application that allows you to digitally arrange the funeral of your loved ones, from picking the casket to choosing where you want them to be laid to rest. It even has sections dedicated to catering, ordering flowers, and even transport options. But it's the introduction of a particularly South African feature that has us excited. The app is soon launching a crowdfunding function that will allow people to donate much needed funds to users to cover someone's funeral costs. This is a common practice, particularly among Black South Africans, and now there's a way to do it easily. The crowdfunding platform, named Machidiso, meaning comfort in Sesotho, will be launched by August, CEO Zolani Matabese told Business Insider South Africa. It will essentially operate similar to a mobile money account that allows users to receive funds from donors. This app could help South Africans rally together to help people, such as the families of the KZN victims, and give their loved ones a proper send-off. Now that's Ubuntu. That's it from us at The Wrap, an award-winning product of Explained at Koza. Simple news summaries for busy people. Remember to share the love, tell your friends to sign up for the updates at explained.koza/subscribe. Till next time, goodbye from the team.